Welcome back to my OD&D campaign. Before I get into this episode, I have a few things to discuss with you. When I started this video series, I indicated that I will be following the OD&D rules very strictly. To do this, I will be taking a great deal of care to interpret the rules as accurately as possible. However, as you may know, OD&D rules have to be wrestled with a bit before they make sense, especially due to the assumption that the players have a good understanding of the chainmail rules and wargaming in general. It's also easy to presume things based on standardizations which came in later editions. Because of this, I may occasionally make a mistake with my interpretation of the OD&D rules. But where I do, and this comes to light, because for example a viewer has spotted something, then I'll do my best to cover this in a future video so anyone attempting to familiarise themselves with OD&D rules can benefit from this knowledge. One such incident has already occurred. When I created my characters, you may recall I altered the ability scores during this process, using certain abilities on a 2 or 3 for 1 basis to increase other scores permanently. I've always interpreted the rules this way, however, it has now come to light that this is incorrect. A YouTube viewer has pointed out that you can only improve a prime requisite score for purposes of gaining experience. And the viewer's comment explains this is usually interpreted not as a direct exchange, but as an effective increase of the prime requisite to achieve the experience bonus threshold. For example, a cleric has intelligence 11 and wisdom 14, the intelligence being 2 points above 9. Those 2 points count as 1 point of wisdom, taking it to 15, and thus earning a 10% experience bonus. The actual scores remain at intelligence 11 and wisdom 14. Having revisited the Men and Magic booklet and read the relevant section again, I agree with this. So what do I do as a DM? A ruling must be made immediately, and the game continued, so I will rework the experience point bonuses based on the reinterpretation of the rules. But I will not be altering the character's ability scores at this point, as this would severely affect the chosen classes. I'm also taking into account that the rolls were pretty rough to begin with. In future, however, any new characters will be rolled in accordance with the correct rules. This is my ruling, and now the game will continue. But before I do, I'd just like to say that if you enjoy my content and find value in it and would like to send a small donation to show your appreciation and help support this channel so it can continue to grow and expand, then please visit paypal.me/TomDnD to make a small donation. I also just want to say thanks to Thomas Boynton and James Sand for their kind donations recently. Thank you so much. And one more thing, I've had several questions in regards to how I generate the adventure for my solo games. As I've already said, you can visit my blog for more information, but to elaborate slightly, my blog has some articles and links to videos I made on this YouTube channel, which can be found under the How to Play D&D Solo playlist, which covers the basics. If you visit my blog or look at the video descriptions on those videos, there are links to some useful PDFs. I made these to help you play your own solo games. Since I made those PDFs and wrote the articles, I've expanded on these rules a lot. For context, dungeons and wilderness and settlements are rolled up using random tables. I have further tables for dealing with features, dressing and encounters in an area, and wherever applicable, random tables present across the OD&D books are always used in this campaign. My solo rules are a constant work in progress as I fill in the blanks over the course of my campaigns. In the future, I plan to compile all the rules into one master rule set, and I intend to release this material, most likely along with more videos, tutorials and articles. This is a pretty extensive piece of work, and will take a long time. Now, let's get into the adventure. As the flesh forms on the floor tile, there is a strange bubbling sound, like water being boiled away. The flesh swiftly takes the form of a beautiful woman, naked at first, but then lavishly dressed in a spectacular garment which appears to be made from pure silver. It gathers around her flesh, formed from the steam that rises from the spot where she stands. She rises above the ground, hovers there, and conjures an object in her hand, an irregular shaped diamond which glows with a soft light. Lunis curiously gazes at the diamond. His eyes grow wide with astonishment, and the woman speaks. "Look into the light, Lunis, and see all of your misdeeds. Look upon every sin you have ever committed against your Maker." Lunis loses sight of the room. All he can see now are visions of every bad thing he has ever done in his life. He must make a saving throw versus spells to break his trance. He fails the saving throw. Tears begin to stream from his eyes as he looks upon sin after sin. "My Maker, please forgive me," Lunis sobs to himself. Varley looks at the statue. She has no idea who the elven man is, but she does notice something peculiar. At first, she thinks a piece of the statue's hair has broken away, just above the left ear at the temple. But on second thought, it looks deliberate. As Varley steps into the room, more floor tiles begin to glow with the red, hot heat, and some, which were previously glowing, become cool again. Without knowing which tile will change at every step of the way, there is a risk of being harmed, or causing harm to another character. Solaris draws her short bow and will attempt to fire an arrow into the statue's temple. It will be a difficult shot to make. She will need to hit armor class 2, but will gain a +1 to her roll because the statue is within 50 feet. She needs a 16 to hit. 14. The arrow came so close. She will try again. Another 14. Lunis's face looks like that of a man whose mind is about to give up if something is not done urgently. He may not survive. "Please, I beg of you, let this man go. We mean no harm to you," Yzalda pleads with the woman in the silver garment. I will roll 2d6 to determine randomly how the silver-garbed woman will react to Yzalda's plead. The woman ignores Yzalda's plea. Cade draws his shortbow and fires an arrow at the woman, aiming for the diamond in her hand. He gains a +1 for short distance, but is firing on armor class 2. He will need a 15 to hit the diamond. 14 again. The arrow does not hit the diamond, but it hits the woman's hand instead, and she drops the diamond, which falls to the floor. As the diamond makes contact, there is no sound, only silence as it hits the tile, as though hitting water with a splash that makes no sound. The woman is transformed into a boar, who immediately charges at Lunis. The characters are not surprised. The boar is 20 feet away. Initiative rolls. Party 1, boar 4. Combat begins with the movement phase. The boar wins the initiative, so moves first. It charges at Lunis. Now the characters can move. Varley moves into melee range of the boar in order to protect Lunis. The others stay put. The next phase is missile fire. Solaris and Cade will fire their short bows. The boar has an armor class of 5 and 1 hit die, so 14 is needed to hit. This is reduced to 13 as the characters are firing at short range. Solaris has a +1 bonus to missile fire, so she only needs 12 to hit. Both characters pierce the boar with an arrow. The boar has 3 hit points, rolling damage. 11 damage in total. Both arrows penetrate the boar's throat, bringing it down before any harm comes to Lunis. Listening to this, if you aren't familiar with OD&D combat, and you are much more familiar with later versions of D&D, you are probably a little confused by how the combat sequence has unfolded. You might particularly be confused in regards to how the boar was defeated without inflicting damage, as it won the initiative roll. OD&D combat is quite different when it comes to how initiative and the combat sequence works. There are 2 things at work here. Firstly, there are the rules outlined in Chainmail for large battles, and the man-to-man combat rules as well. This explains how the combat sequence works. Secondly, there are the rules given in the Men and Magic booklet for the alternative combat system. This does not replace the Chainmail rules, it just subsumes various things in relation to damage, hit probability, and weaponry. You don't need to understand any of this to enjoy this video series, and I will do my best to make it clearer as we progress, so don't worry. But to eliminate any confusion, in OD&D combat, if done properly, the party that wins the initiative may move first in the movement phase, if they wish to do so. Then, the side who lost the initiative gets to move, and following this the combat sequence will progress through each phase accordingly. Missile fire, melee, and so on. Therefore, winning or losing initiative in OD&D combat does not quite have the same impact as it does in later editions. Now that's cleared up, let's get back to the story. Following the death of the boar, Claudius still appears to be in a trance, although his face seems somewhat tranquil in comparison to the horrified expression he previously held. The floor tiles are once again all the same cool aqua colour. The boar has something strange hanging on a chain about its neck. The characters all move fully into the entrance hall. Cade inspects the item closely. It's a yellow, glassy hexagon-shaped bauble, hanging from a thin chain. Ysalda gives her brother a light shake and he comes back to reality, gathering his senses. She then wedges the door open with an iron spike. There is a 1/3 chance, die 5 or 6, that the spike will slip and the door will shut behind them. The door holds. Cade seems satisfied that the bauble cannot be opened. He pockets the item for now. Meanwhile, Varley takes a closer look at the statue. The cube-shaped dais it is set upon is perfectly smooth and impossible to climb. The dais itself is very peculiar. There is a small indentation on its rear surface which matches the hexagon shape of the yellow bauble. Cade places the bauble into the indentation to see what happens. Suddenly, an eerie voice can be heard from within the dais. "Help me," it says, and the quartz glows momentarily with an ethereal light, quite similar to the light that emanated from the diamond which pulled Lunis into a trance. Within the light, Cade sees a member of the Piercing Eye, a woman dressed in robes with the same emblem as the corpses littered outside. It's clear from the emblem that this is a member of lower rank, as there is no eye, just the lightning cutting through the diamond. This woman also carries a spear, which is forbidden by clerics, so this is highly unusual. Varley pulls out the spear she retrieved from the Piercing Eye corpse outside to inspect it. It's identical. As soon as she holds it out in front of her, the light from the quartz is suddenly funneled into the tip of the spear, energizing it. She notices the small golden image of an elven woman on its shaft, and when she touches the image, a beam of light shoots from the end of the spear. Varley remembers the small opening at the statue's temple, and she points the spear towards this, and shoots a beam of light into the opening. A doorway silently manifests on the rear wall of the dais, leading into darkness, and before the characters can even react, they are pulled by an unseen force into the dais. Stay tuned to find out what happens next. If you enjoyed this episode, then please give this video a like. Feel free to add a comment to let me know your thoughts. If you don't want to miss a future video, then make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon to receive a notification when I upload a new one. See you next session.